Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Go to Bolt fam, it's the director sporting the new white Keenan Allen jersey, baby. Ooh, this thing is hot, man. This thing is clean. Love it, love it, love it. I actually had a custom powder blue director jersey made as well to wear at the Bears game months ago. And unfortunately, just a couple of days late, isn't it? We'll show that jersey off here in just a little while as well. Today, we're here to talk about the Chargers matchup versus the New York Jets coming up on Monday Night Football. Man, the Chargers just can't seem to stay out of the limelight. Another primetime game for the Chargers, which in the end is not a terrible thing to see. Of course, we know Justin Herbert, when the lights turn on and we're looking at the primetime football, it just feels like he transforms into a different quarterback, man. The dude is very efficient in primetime. And we're really hoping to see that version of him come Monday, because this is going to be a tough matchup, man. I'm telling you guys right now, the Saints your daddy's Jets, okay? This Jets team, even without Aaron Rodgers, is pretty scary. And I think it's off the back of that Robert Saleh defense. I'm feeling a little bit bitter here, man. Robert Saleh, the defensive-minded genius, goes to the New York Jets and builds a super team defense. For that, we're hoping to see the same thing at some point, right? Unfold with Brandon Staley. That point is moot. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup, Chargers-Jets. A surprisingly important game for the Chargers that they need to grab some momentum here. Now, before we do get started, guys, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Hey, man, I believe in second chances around here on the channel. And fortunately for us, man, if you guys missed out on the first Justin Herbert special, here it is again, man. For you newcomers to the best fantasy platform on the web, check out this new Justin Herbert special right here, man. Half a yard for Justin Herbert. Of course, I'm going to be throwing down for this one. If you guys would like to join in as well, use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100 and get in on the action, especially if you haven't tried it yet, man. We still got half the season to enjoy fantasy football. Before we do kick off, guys, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, bell notification. Helps me out a lot. Let's jump into it, baby. Lights, camera, action. Your Chargers at Jets game preview, as well as your director No Shave November preview. It's horrible. It's awful. We're going to see what we got out there, okay? Let's start things off with our injury report. Of course, like we always do with these preview videos. Not much to see here. Of course, a couple of guys that you're hoping to see return for the Chargers. Gerald Everett with full practices in should be coming back. And I got an idea with this guy, okay? Unfortunately, man, I should have put a photo in for the tight ends here. I think a very important aspect of this game is going to be the tight ends. So much so, I'm actually going to go ahead and add a segment to this video live before we proceed. There we go, snug and ready to go for later. All right, definitely going to add that. So I'm going to talk about the tight ends here in just a minute. Outside of that, we did not practice for Josh Palmer. That's going to be a pretty big one for the Chargers, trying to figure out what we're doing at wide receiver. Of course, we're already missing Mike Williams, a big part of this offense. What are they going to do outside of that? Outside of that, we got guys like Justin Herbert. Of course, he's going to be okay. Tito coming back and Jalen Guyton coming back. Also, two big parts of this team that have been absent. Really cool to see these guys maybe making their way back this week. I know for sure I think Jalen Guyton's going to play. Haven't heard quite what's going on with Tito. Either way, nice to see these players return to the fold. On the Jets side of the ball here, we do have one guy I think to mention, maybe a couple here. Limited practice for Xavier Gibson, wide receiver. Chaz Surratt, I know that name. Either way, did not practice. He might be missing this game. And a couple other guys here, Joe Tippmann and Laken Tomlinson. Ooh, offensive lineman. He's actually not bad there. A couple of guys to monitor there for the Jets. All right, so let's jump into this game on some of the topics that I think are pretty important leading up to Monday Night Football. And of course, the Justin Herbert show will need to continue there. Now, of course, like we said at the top of the show, Justin Herbert turns into a different quarterback on Monday Night Football. I should say primetime football every single season. Only a couple of games standing out really as average for this man. He does seem to go out there and put on a show when the lights go on. Now, this is going to be a very big test for Justin Herbert, however. You guys remember at the top of the show I was saying, this is a tough football team. This ain't your daddy's Jets. This is kind of where it begins to come into play, okay? Quarterbacks have been having a tough time throwing against this team, and this is going to be a very big test for Justin Herbert on Monday, okay? As a matter of fact, the Jets defense has limited quarterbacks to just 184 yards per game. I know that's one of the best in terms of statistics in the league right now. And I think what's even more evident into why Justin Herbert's really going to have to step up this game is the fact that this defense has really slowed down the elite quarterbacks in this league that they have faced so far as well. And they faced a few. This Jets defense has faced Josh Allen already. I think they won that game, as a matter of fact. I think off of the back of their defense, if I'm not mistaken. Josh Allen in that game did throw for 236 yards, but just one touchdown, and get this, 3 interceptions. That defensive backcourt of the Jets, man, that is one that you don't want to mess with, dude. That defensive backcourt, they are playmakers. They are turnover machines. And even against one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Josh Allen, they had themselves a day. But it doesn't end there. They also faced the likes of Patrick Mahomes. And in that game, they limited Pat Mahomes to just 203 yards, 1 touchdown, and again, 2 interceptions. That is not great, especially for a quarterback who's maybe, coming off of a finger injury that might be affecting this or that. I know it adds a little bit of pressure to him taking any contact there, but just goes to show that this isn't going to be an easy game by any means for Justin Herbert in the passing game. Okay, Kellen Moore is going to have to get creative in order to help keep Justin Herbert and those stats healthy, which ultimately will help us win the game. And he's going to have to put in a solid performance to keep our offense on pace as well, because you're not just going to be able to win this game by leaning on your defense, which is ultimately what the Chargers are going to have to do. You're going to have to go out there and put on a very good offensive performance in order to keep up with this Jets team, which is no slouch on offense either. Maybe that's not their strength, but the defense sure makes it very difficult for you to keep pace. All right, so Justin Herbert, we're going to need to see that primetime Herb out there early, slinging the football, finding ways to get these guys open despite some of the coverage you're going to be looking at, because it is going to be a tough matchup, a tough day for the O in that way. Now, if you're not going to be, throwing the football as aggressively this week, or maybe finding limited success there, how are you going to move the football? Well, in this week, I'm going to go ahead and say that Moore's run game has to be revived. Kellen Moore, okay? One of the biggest aspects of this offense that I was excited to see at the top of the season was the possibility of the run game becoming rejuvenated. Okay, and of course we did see some evidence of that possibly happening in week 1 versus the Dolphins. Man, this run defense, or this run offense, looks so good. It looked like finally the Chargers had that element to their offense that would really open things up for Justin Herbert in the past. Well, since then, we haven't seen much in terms of run offense. As a matter of fact, it's been very poor. Now, you can chalk that up to maybe having the absence of Austin Eckler. That certainly does affect things. But even with Eckler back the past couple of weeks, the run game hasn't been anything special to run home about. Even with, big runs from Josh Kelly and some of his contributions there, it just hasn't been a very solid aspect of the team. This week, that's going to have to change if the Chargers stand any chance of winning this game. Now, the Jets do have a defense. Like most teams, they have an Achilles heel, okay? They got one thing. If you can exploit that, I think you can grab the win. And in particular, for this defense, it's going to be their run D, all right? The Jets' defensive weakness lies in their run D. They are, I think, right now the second worst in the league, allowing 144 yards per game. That is where you have to strike. That is where you have to attack. And ultimately, that's where you have to design your whole game around this week, is getting that run game going. And this might end up being a little frustrating for Chargers fans, right? The defense is going to be very, very tough to go up against this week. All right. And we're going to still want to throw the football. We're going to feel, oh my God, the last drive was 3 and out. Maybe this drive is 3 and out. How are we going to move the football? Why are we running it at early downs and third downs? It's because this week in particular, that might be our best chance and opportunity to convert, to move down the field. And honestly, if I were Kellen Moore, as frustrating as it might be for Chargers fans to see this week, you got to get that run game going. You're going to have to force it at times because, again, that defense is very, very good. But if they have one weakness, it's going to be on the ground. Now, hopefully the Chargers can remind us of some of the success we saw in week 1 versus the Dolphins in this particular matchup. Because again, I don't know how many times we're going to see a run defense this bad again. It would be a great opportunity for the Chargers to get the run game back on pace, as well as give ourselves the best opportunity to score this week. So if you're a fantasy football owner of Austin Eckler, fire him up with confidence. Because if I were Kellen Moore, I think it'd be very obvious that we're going to try and run our offense through him this week, particularly on the ground, where the Chargers stand the most chances to succeed moving the ball there. Because otherwise, got to remember this, guys. As frustrating as it could be to see the Chargers running a lot this week, which we might find a lot of success in, who knows, we need to help out Herbert in some way, shape, or form. Herbert will stand no chance without help from the running backs this week, and it's going to have to come off the back, I think, primarily on the run game. Keep that in mind. Run game, run is going to be a big part of the offense this week. I guarantee it. All right? Next subject here. Well, what about the passing game? This is the reason why it's going to be kind of a struggle for the Chargers and why you're going to be wanting to run it a little bit more. This is a wideouts nightmare matchup. Okay, you got so many good DBs out there, from the safeties to the corners. Primarily the corners this week are going to be some of the toughest we face all season. The Jets have a stupid good passing D. And each player is going to have to step up in order to overcome that, especially with Josh Palmer likely out this week. Ooh! The receiver situation got a little murkier against maybe the best DB, unit that we're going to face all season long. Now, of course, we do have Keenan Allen, which in a lot of ways he can be matchup proof, but in some ways maybe not. All right. I think no matter where Keenan is going to be lining up this week, it's going to be a tough matchup. On the outside, which I think he's lining up there 30% of the time, 40% of the time, he's likely going to be seeing a lot of Sauce Gardner. Okay. One of, if not the best corner in the entire league. Let's say he decides to line up in the slot. Well, there you got Michael Carter, which very underrated, one of the best slot corners in the entire league. So Keenan Allen, it's going to be tough to get him involved this week. Of course, you're still going to lean on him as your best offensive weapon as far as receivers go on the team, but it's going to be a little tougher to get him the football this week. Despite that, I do think Keenan's going to make a difference this game. He's going to convert for us this game. That's going to be a very, very, very tough game for him matchup-wise. What about the other receivers? What about Quentin Johnston, right? Quentin Johnston, who had a 50-yard game last week. We could say his soft breakout of the 2023 season. I would say I hope for the best. I really do. I think that game is indicative of maybe some momentum being gained this season, but I don't know if it's going to come this week. I hope it does. I really hope it does. And I think there's ways that you can get him involved where it absolutely is the case. But if he's going to be lined up primarily on the outside, I would guess that he's going to see a lot of Sauce Gardner. I think it's because of the size thing, right? Quentin Johnston, 6'4", decently fast. Who's the other guy that they have? Hall? Is it Bryce Hall? I don't know how tall that guy is. I think he's kind of shorter. I would suspect that he's going to be maybe on our smaller guys like, Darius Davis, maybe Jalen Guyton a little bit with his return this week. But I do think if Keenan Allen's in the slot a lot this week, you're going to see Sauce Gardner on Quentin Johnston a lot too. And that's going to make things especially tough in terms of receiving for the rookie. And that's going to limit his productivity. That's why at the top of the season, I talked a lot about, Quentin Johnston, his potential to be like this big thing in his rookie year. I think a lot of it had to do with Mike Williams pulling a lot of that premium coverage off of him, right? If Mike Williams was here this week, you would see Sauce Gardner on him 10 out of 10 times, right? You're going to see Sauce Gardner trying to limit that big playability from Mike Williams. Well, with Mike sidelined, those premium corners now have room to attach themselves to the young wide receiver, and it's going to make this week especially difficult. I do think, however, if you're Kellen Moore and you find a way to get that run game going, you can drop a nice play action to that speed option and Quentin Johnston. I think you might have something there this week for a big play or two, but we'll have to see if that's something that even develops with those premium corners all over them. Lastly, you do have the other guys, though, that I think the Chargers may be wise to try and lean on a little bit more. Of course, Bryce Hall, definitely not a bad corner. I think one of the more, again, underrated. Him and Michael Carter, man. Two of the better corners underrated in the league, especially with what they got working with them at safety and corner in Sauce Gardner. I do think the Chargers will be needing to lean on these other guys a little bit more this week, though. Jalen Guyton is going to be coming back from that torn ACL. I think he's going to be a big part of this game. Chargers haven't had that second speed option, or I should say maybe now at this point third, right? He's one of the fastest players on this team, him and Darius Davis. Having him back is going to be a big deal, and maybe the Chargers draw something up to get that speed involved very early. But we also have Darius Davis. I think, again, if they share one trait on this team, it's going to be speed. And if I were the Chargers drawing up the passing game this week, you're Kellen Moore. You had a couple things working for you. I think Eckler definitely a big part of it. The speed, I think, from Davis and Guyton will also be pivotal to our success this week. If the Chargers have any chance of moving the football, getting that passing game going, you got to get that speed involved somehow. Creatively, maybe in the way that we've been using Darius Davis, maybe you'll find some success there, right? But you got to get that speed involved because Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston, they're going to have their hands full with some very premium DBs in coverage there. Now, of course, getting Darius Davis, Guyton, getting them involved, very important. I still think that your best chance of success, though, this week is going to be Austin Eckler. Let's actually talk about him first. Austin Eckler. This offense should be running through him this week. We already talked about him in the run game, and we got to talk about him through the passing game a little bit. This is the one player I don't see the Jets shutting down this week is Austin Eckler. Maybe this other guy we're about to talk about in just a second, and Donald Parham as well. And that could make a big difference to our offense. I'm actually kind of excited to talk about that. But first, Austin Eckler, he does have that matchup-proof ability that you don't see very often at skill positions on offense, right? Where it's like, man, you could put a really good, defensive player on him and he's still going to get open. Yes, the run defense sucks, and that's where I primarily see Austin Eckler contributing this week. But Eckler could keep the passing game alive underneath for the Chargers as well. He could keep Justin Herbert's confidence soaring through this game and ultimately get other guys open with how much we can attack the underneath. I think, again, CJ Mosley is a great linebacker for the Jets, and I think he will be a tougher linebacker for Austin Eckler to go up against this season, but Eckler is just a special receiving back. And we're going to have to kind of lean into those roots a little bit from our maybe offense last year. I know people hate hearing that, the Lombardi offense. Well, sometimes, depending on matchup, those sorts of moves can be very valuable. Of course, you want to, lay it out and maybe execute it a little bit more creatively that we've seen with Kellen Moore. But we're going to have to attack the underneath, and you got one of the best weapons in the NFL to do so, Austin Eckler. Keep that passing game alive by attacking the underneath and finding space for other receivers up top when you start seeing the DBs, maybe pressing a little bit more, playing a little closer to the line of scrimmage. Yeah, if I were Kellen Moore, I would be revolving our game plan entirely around Austin Eckler this week. How do we complement Eckler? How do we get Eckler space to run? How do we get Eckler space to get open? How do we get Eckler, space to create some yards after the catch there? I think Austin Eckler is kind of the key for this game. And our underneath game has to be on point this week. So I would look for number 30 to be very, very involved, not just on the ground in terms of running the football, but as a receiver as well. I would look for other speed options like Guyton and Darius Davis. I would honestly, if we see, 15, drag routes or mesh concepts in terms of plays this week where they're kind of running underneath in a straight line, I wouldn't be upset about that. Because if there's one thing you can beat these premium corners on, it's speed. And the Chargers have a couple of guys that can do that. Then you got Austin Eckler underneath. That's kind of where I think things lie. Now, the surprise addition that we talked about that I do think could get very much so involved this week is Donald Parham. And this is kind of my dark horse, right? This is kind of like the black sheep of the offense that hasn't been used as often, but my God, when he is used, it's like, wow, this guy really does stand out. I think it's time to get Donald Parham more integrated. And what we've seen from Donald Parham in the past, even in the last week, is his ability to create mismatches. And that's something that the Chargers offense in terms of passing has missed so much since Mike Williams' departure in terms of injury. Now, I said something crazy in my last video. I'm going to say it again. I think Donald Parham lined up out wide is something I want to see a lot more. Sure, you're not going to get the same kind of upside you would have with Mike Williams, who plays, wide receiver as his natural position. But Donald Parham is no slouch. The dude is one of the faster, biggest targets you're going to find in the league that we did see find some success lined up in the outside last week. He is kind of supplementing that Mike Williams role a little bit. You do put him up against a Sauce Gardner. Yes, I do think Sauce is going to win that, a lot, right? Because he's just one of the best corners in the league. But you do have a little bit of an advantage there because Sauce isn't 6'8". Donald Parham is. And maybe Donald Parham pulls that premium coverage off of another player like Quentin Johnston, who can also get involved. Now that we've got Gerald Everett back, and this is the reason why I wanted to add this segment to the video, I thought it was very important. Can't believe I missed it. Is because now we've got a tight end in Gerald Everett, who I think both these guys can play out wide if they want. But let's say we got Gerald Everett playing at tight end. You can roll out Donald Parham maybe a little bit more at wide receiver, especially now that the Chargers have signed, is it Nick Vanette? Is that his name? The blocking tight end to the roster, and the Chargers now have that guy who I think is much a better blocker than Trey McKitty was. Playing on that opposite, you could play 3 tight ends in this game quite often to help your run game. To get Donald Parham involved as a receiver, whether he's playing inside or outside or whatever, I think Donald Parham could be a big part of this offense going forward. And maybe creating those mismatches that the Chargers have been missing so much with Mike Williams, as well as getting better matchups for guys like Quentin Johnston. I don't know, man. If I were the Chargers and I looked at my roster and I said, hey, we're missing Mike Williams. This sucks. We got to get creative. If I were Mike or Kellen Moore and I said, hey, I got to get creative with weapons I got on this team, Donald Parham would stick out like a sore thumb. This man is unique. This man is fast. Sure, knock on wood, he can stay healthy, but who are you going to get to cover this man? He's proven he can play great out wide. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that. If I were the Chargers, again, I'm revolving these offense around Austin Eckler this week, the short passing game. If you're passing at all, I'm getting Donald Parham involved there. I'm getting the tight ends very much so involved this week. And then I'm running the football a lot. And I think that elevation of tight end, Vanett, the premium blocking tight end, is kind of indicative of what they want to do this week. A lot of running, and maybe we free up the tight ends to get more involved this week. I like it. I like it a lot. A couple other segments here before we start shutting things down. Protect Herb with the quick strikes. This is a big reason why, again, I'm kind of tying a bow on all of these segments here. I think protecting Justin Herbert is going to be a very important part of this week because the Jets' pass rush is no joke. Those guys generate some crazy pressure. And that's, I think, a reason why their pass D has been so good. Of course, they got premium DBs, but that pass rush certainly does help. This kind of plan of attack in terms of quick strikes underneath and then finding, success in the run game, this protects Justin Herbert this week from a really bad matchup in terms of passing D. Okay, you want to protect Herbert when you can. You have to lean on him to win games, of course. But if you can give him an opportunity to win this game without putting his butt on the line too often, that's what I want. That kind of ties a bow on everything that we've been talking about. Target the tight ends. Get the running game really, really involved this week and strike underneath. Quick strikes. Don't give Justin Herbert too much time to take any contact. Okay? A big thing about this week, too, on the offense, though, and again, if we can get Quentin involved, absolutely fantastic. We need to wake up as a second-half team, too. This has been a huge part of the year that's been bothering me. A big part of last year that was bothering me. I was really hoping to leave behind in the Joe Lombardi days. It hasn't. We need a second-half wake-up call. I think this game could be determined in the second half, as a matter of fact, which is scary for Chargers fans because the Chargers have been a very poor second-half team. We don't put up a lot of points in the second half. That's got to change this week if we stand any chance of beating this not your daddy's Jets. Okay? The Jets have been a sleeping giant even without Rodgers. And we got to find a way to beat them, and I think it's going to lie in the second. Again, the second, what I mean by sleeping giant is that even without Aaron Rodgers, they've defeated the Eagles, right? They beat the Eagles. I'm not mistaken. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They beat the Buffalo Bills. They almost defeated the Chiefs as well. This team is sneaky good. But then again, they've also lost to teams like Dallas, which of course they're good, not great, and New England. So they're not subject to losing that one now and then, right? So I do think the Chargers could sneak in there for a win here. But we have to score in the second half to keep this game within striking distance. You got to. If you put up 6 points in the second half, game over. You put up 3 points in the second half, game over. You have got to put up, 7, 10, 14 points in the second half in order to keep pace with this defense, which is going to be tough. It's called overcoming the premium defense. So it's going to be very tough. In the end, a couple of guys on offense for the Jets that we need to watch out for. We got to contain Breece Hall. Of course, the Chargers have done a very nice job on defense in terms of defending the run. This is still going to be one of those guys that stand out to me. Like, he could be an exception, though. Got to watch out. He's the talent. He's the big boy that could dice up the Chargers' run D despite our success this season. Got to watch out for him. Also got to watch out for that Wilson to Wilson connection that we've been seeing develop. The Jets haven't been a great offense, but if there's one thing that's been consistent is the talent of Garrett Wilson and his ability to sometimes, I'll hate to say it, bail out Zach Wilson in terms of his lack of play at quarterback. But again, Zach Wilson's going to keep things manageable for the Chargers defense. We've got to make sure that defense makes a difference this week. But he can see a game if guys like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall get any sort of momentum. A guy that's going to help us contain that momentum, though, is going to be Joey Bosa, which we bring up this point a lot, so I won't push it too heavy in this video. But Joey Bosa, he's getting healthier. He had a great game last week. He's coming back into that momentum. We've also got Tuli Tuipulotu. We've also got, Khalil Mack. That trio is going to continue wreaking havoc. I think Zach Wilson, he's going to have his hands full again this week, like most quarterbacks that we face go up against do. And I think especially this unit could determine the game in terms of their involvement in creating turnovers. Sometimes it could be directly with a forced fumble or something like that. Sometimes it can be as a result of that pressure, forcing a bad ball by a guy like Zach Wilson. I think the pressure is going to be pretty involved this week. The last thing I think is a very important part of this conversation for the Chargers facing the Jets. Limited third down success. Now, this is a double-edged sword because I'm not just talking about the Jets, who are not a great team on third down, but also the Chargers. The Chargers need to improve that stat. We are not a great third down offense. We're not. We're going to have to find a way to become that this week, and it's going to be especially tough versus this defense. We struggle on third downs a lot. But on the flip side, New York Jets, they are not a great offense on third down either. They struggle a lot to convert on third downs, and the Chargers could keep this game in front of them with a stout third down defense this week. And I think the Chargers honestly should be up to it. We got to stop playing soft, start pressing a little bit more, play closer to the line of scrimmage, let these guys get physical, and I think the Chargers stand a chance here. But if we continue to play soft zone, let, Garrett Wilson or whatever the tight end is just go sit in that soft zone, I think we're out. We got to play aggressive on defense. We got to find a way to play creatively on offense, and I think the Chargers could take this one. In the end, my score prediction for the Chargers at New York Jets is going to be Chargers 21, Jets 23. Close game. And again, I made the score this close because I do think it's going to be a close game, and I do think the Chargers have the ability to win this game. I absolutely do. We just got to get out of our own way defensively. Stop playing so soft. You got to find a way to put up, I would say, 24-plus points in order to win this game, which is absolutely possible. In my score prediction, we're, 3 points away, a field goal away from winning this game? Can the Chargers overcome that? Can they not shoot themselves in the foot in order to find that success late? It's going to be determined in the second half. So unfortunately, in my prediction, the Chargers unable to score a lot in the second half is going to be their downfall. But if they can overcome that, if they find a way to move the football, creatively behind guys like Austin Eckler and Donald Parham and the speedy wide receivers in Guyton and Darius Davis, I think we stand a chance to win this game. Can the Chargers get out of their own way, though? We'll have to wait and see. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with the like and sub on your way out. And shout out to all the loyal viewers of this channel. We have a kind of a surprise coming up here in the future in terms of expanded content. It's going to be fun. Just hang in there. I think it's going to be a really fun reveal here in the next couple of weeks. So maybe even the next week or so. So keep your eyes peeled. We got something fun coming down the woodworks here really soon. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. Like and sub on your way out. If you did enjoy this content, we'll see you next time. And as always, both up with the new clean white jerseys and stay frosty. Let's go, Austin Eckler. We need to have you to have a game this week.